it's Melissa. Happy Monday. Happy New Year. I am back with our third in the series for super beginners for Silhouette Cameo 4. So today we are going to do a first heat transfer vinyl cut. And I have everything all ready for you. We are going to do what I would consider probably a perfect very first project. I actually think heat transfer vinyl is probably the ideal first project, better than paper, better than vinyl, better than a stencil, better than, print and cut for sure. We are going to make a little heat transfer vinyl shirt, and I have this free design for you as well. So I've linked to it at the top, the side, wherever, so you can download that from our sister site at So Fancy. This comes as a part of a set, a 3-set design set for vinyl, heat transfer vinyl, and print and cut. So you can use all 3 of those designs and follow along with the exact videos, okay? The other thing that I have linked to is how to set this up in Silhouette Studio. Now, I've done as much as I possibly can, even giving you the free studio file. To open a design in Silhouette Studio, all you need to do is go to File, Open, or File Merge if you want it to open in the work area that you're already working in. And then you need to navigate to that file on your computer. So I have that So Fancy beginner set already downloaded. I am going to use the Fur Mama. You are not going to be able to open the folder itself. So make sure you get down to the file level. And this one comes with the Silhouette Studio version, which is perfect. So we will click open and that will open in Silhouette Studio. Now, to move the design, because I would recommend putting it in the top corner up here, you can select it and grab it. However, you want to make sure that the entire design comes together, because if you try to move this design and only part of it comes like this, it's not going to all move in at the same time. So before you move it, take your mouse and hold down around, far away from the design and slide all the way across. You can see these little squares that are getting around your entire design. Those are selection boxes. So when you have one around every part of your design, you can then right click and group. Now your design will be completely grouped together, so it will all move together. And you can now select it. You have to click right on one of the filled areas or on a cut line and move it, okay? So to size this design, to make it a little bit larger for a shirt, we're gonna make it about 5 to 6 inches. You wanna make sure the design, again, is selected, has this box around it, and use one of the corner nodules to pull out and just watch the size, the dimension change, okay? You can see that right here. For HTV, you want to make one additional change, and that is to rotate, or flip or mirror your design. So you can do that again while the design is selected, right click, flip horizontally, okay? And I like to put a weeding box around my design. You'll see that'll make it easier later. Just use the draw box tool over here. You're going to select the box and then use your mouse to draw a box around your design. You want to make sure it has a little bit of extra room on all sides of your design. And now your design will be ready to cut. So I have linked to a blog post that will also show you how to do the setup in Silhouette Studio once you bring it in. It's very simple since I've got it all ready for you. So a couple of common questions about how to start with HTV. How do you know what size to do? Where do you place it? We are actually going to start with an iron. I have my iron warmed up instead of a heat press because a lot of beginners, most beginners, start with an iron, and so it's not really beneficial to you if I show you how to use my heat press, which I have plenty of other videos and tutorials on. Okay, so first things first, these are my daughter's like old shirts that she was going to, donate or whatever. I usually just grab a few, and these are perfect. This is a perfect type of thing that you can use when you are practicing, okay? So instead of, wasting a brand new shirt, or I should say risking a brand new shirt, get an old shirt, that you don't mind if it gets a little messed up. And honestly, if you do it and then you want to practice again, you can use the back, if you can use the bottom. Like, don't feel like, you have to get this right. There's so much pressure because, you only have one shirt. No, just relax, it'll be okay. We'll get through it, okay? All right, so here's the deal. I'm gonna use this shirt And if I was going to figure out, where is my measuring tape? If I was going to figure out exactly what size I was going to do on this, I would measure this area. Now for kids, I would say probably, I mean, this is, I don't know what size shirt this is, probably like a 10, 12, yeah, 10, 12. I would do probably something about 6 inches wide, okay? And typically the rule is from the collar. How far from the collar? For kids, I would say about 2 inches. You want to start the design about 2 inches from the collar neckline. For adults, about 3, okay? So we're not going to worry about side placement right now. We are going to just do center placement, okay? All right, so now that you know how to size your design, and as I said, you can link to the video up top or to the side for how to import and size specifically. We will now work on cutting, okay? So I'm gonna pull you down to my table so that you can see exactly what I'm doing, but we're using heat transfer vinyl. Heat transfer vinyl has a shiny side and a dull side. The shiny side is actually the transfer carrier sheet that you are going to be able to use. You don't have to use transfer paper like you would, or transfer tape like you would with adhesive vinyl. It's built in. That shiny side is going to go down onto your mat. This here that's facing up is actually what's going to be the adhesive side of this when it's heat activated, which if you're thinking, that means you have to cut in reverse because you're going to flip this onto your design, okay, or onto your shirt. All right. Okay, so let me pull you down to my table and I will show you exactly how we are going to get this all set up and how we will then go about cutting. So we have our cutting mat. You have to take the sticky part off, I mean the cover sheet off, obviously. And it's best if you start with a full sheet. It's easiest. I have a 12, this is a little bit larger than 12 by 12, but if you have a 12 by 12 sheet, that's perfect. And let me see, let me just go this way a little bit. Okay, and then you want to start by placing your, I'm actually going to, I have something on the back of this piece, which you don't want to, you want to make sure you don't have anything on your mat or your material, because that will change the force, the thickness and the force, and it can impact your cutting, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna place this directly onto my cutting mat. This is a little tricky because it wants to get stuck. So if you can roll it a little bit and then place that that top edge right along the top and margin of your mat. Now, it's very important that when you place this down onto your cutting mat, there's no bubbles, okay? So just kind of, you can roll it down, okay? And stick it on there, all right? It's okay, mine's hanging off a little bit. It's probably like 13 or 14 inches instead of 12 by 12, totally fine, okay? And then we are going to get our Cameo. So I'm using my Autoblade, which this is the Autoblade. It has a red line on there that's going to move when it taps. This comes with your Cameo, okay? Make sure that when you put it in your cutting machine, it's all the way down. You wanna make sure that there's no gap in this area, okay? And then lock it in. If your blade is up, you know, even a tad like this, where there's a teeny bit of a gap here, it's not going to cut correctly, okay? Because it's not gonna be able to adjust correctly. This is the line where you want the left edge of your cutting mat to line up with, okay? And this square here, tough to see, this square here is a mat loading sensor. So when you press the load button on your, the control panel, it'll flash, and then you can use both hands to load the mat. And this is going to help ensure that the mat goes in straight and stays straight as it starts cutting, okay? All right, so now we are ready to begin cutting. So I have everything set up in Silhouette Studio. And the only thing that I change in Silhouette Studio, for this I would pick the material in the send panel as Heat Transfer Smooth. I would just change the force from the default to 14, okay? So that usually helps it. And now we are going to send our design to cut. It is going to ask you, do you want to send as is, or do you want to send mirrored? We have already mirrored it in Silhouette Studio. As we talked about, you have to mirror your design in Studio. And again, very challenging for me to show you the Studio part of this on a Facebook Live. So that's why I have linked to a tutorial that goes step by step by step for the setup as well, okay? All right, so then we'll send this to cut. And this, you can see the blade is tapping. That's how it's adjusting to the recommended blade depth, which you can see in Silhouette Studio is a blade depth of 2, okay? So this is gonna cut, it's gonna take a second, and then we are going to go through the process of weeding, okay? Weeding is where you remove the excess heat transfer vinyl, the excess material from around your design to expose the design itself, okay? So I'm going to show you this whole process. I apologize, this is going to take a second to cut, and then we will go through the process of not only weeding, but applying to our shirt using an iron, okay? Now, someone's asking, what do you use this second blade for, the second carriage for? So on the Cameo 4, this carriage here, this tool 2 carriage is a specialty carriage for high force, high density materials and tools. The only tools that can go in this second carriage here on the Cameo 4 are the rotary blade, which is what I have in there now, and the craft blade. So the craft blade, I'll show you, is this here, okay? Do not worry about that for if you're a beginner, okay? See how it says 2 on there? That's how you know it goes into carriage 2. The Autoblade has a 1 on it. That says a 1. Someone is saying it's frozen, and I apologize. I don't know if maybe my internet is acting up right now or not, so, but it seems like some of you can see. So we'll carry on. This video will be on YouTube after we're done here, so if you're missing right now, I apologize, and hopefully you'll be able to see it fully on YouTube. Okay, so here we go. So this is now cut. Now before I remove this, one thing that I would recommend is making sure that your design has completely cut through, because if it hasn't, you can go back to Silhouette Studio and tell it to send again. Okay, if you remove this and then you realize it hasn't weeded correctly, you're not gonna be able to line up exactly where it was, and you'll have wasted that HTV. So either if you did a weeding box, which I did, you can pull the corner of that up, or you can find something like a letter A or O or you know, D, and where it has a middle, and you can pull that piece up, and you can see that weeded easily. So I know that my design, I can feel pretty confident that my design was cut well. Okay, so we're gonna unload this, and then we are going to weed this. So I'm gonna get the Cameo out of the way just to give us a little bit more room here. And now we are gonna go through the process of weeding. Now, in Silhouette Studio, I put a box using the Draw Box tool around my design for the simple reason that I'm not now fighting with this entire sheet of HTV, okay? I only have to remove this one square around it, okay? And I can kind of save the rest of my HTV for another project, okay? And it also exposes my design, all right? So weeding, this is the process of weeding, where you're removing the pieces of your design that you don't need to cut, all right? Now this is a circle that has, I'm gonna show you what it ultimately looks like, because I did a sample for you. This is what it looks like. So if you're not sure what areas to weed out, look on Silhouette Studio. Your design will show you exactly, you know, the parts that you need and the parts that you don't. And for the letters, that, you know, it's not a big deal, but you might be wondering, like, for this circle, and we're gonna talk about that circle in a second, but for right now, let me just weed this out. You should be easily able to remove the HTV, okay? It's not coming off the mat, it's coming off the carrier sheet, which I'll show you in just a second. The carrier sheet we do not want to cut through, all right? We need that so that our design all stays together and we can move it over to our shirt, all right? And I would recommend starting with a shirt. It's pretty easy, okay? All right, so that's that. Now, it looks funny because it's backwards, all right? So this is how it's still on the carrier sheet, and you can see that now when I flip it over, now you can see the design. Now, these designs are looking a little bit different. I think you can see. Okay, this one has these kind of, you know, lines that are out of the circle, and this one's a solid circle. If you are a beginner, feel free to leave it. The cut lines are in there for those odd little shapes to kind of give it a little bit of, you know, design flair. But if you're feeling like a little overwhelmed, feel free to just leave that circle, because when you go to press that with your iron or your heat press, they are gonna all melt together anyway. I will go through and weed them out just so you guys can see how that looks. But just so you know, you don't have to do that. And HTV, this is why I recommend it for the beginners, because it's extremely forgiving when it comes to cutting and weeding and pressing. Okay, so if you just give me a minute, I'll finish weeding this, and then we will use our iron to apply to the shirt. Now, to prepare your iron, you want to put it on the cotton setting. You don't want any steam because we don't want any moisture as we're pressing to give us the best press. And ironing, when you're using an iron for HTV, you are not going to iron as if you were ironing a shirt. And I act like I know what that means because let me tell you about the last time I ironed a shirt. But what I mean by that is you're not going to be moving your iron around, okay? You're going to be keeping your iron in iron size areas of your design for 20 to 30 seconds, okay? And you're going to be pressing with a good amount of pressure. And this will work. This is how almost all beginners start, is with an iron, which is again why I'm going to show you it this way. But just know that you will greatly speed up the process and reduce the amount of time and energy it takes you. And you will also get a better press and pressure if you use a heat press. But again, most beginners don't have that because they have just received their machine, bought their machine, and the heat press is yet another expense. Okay, so we are now ready to go. So now what I'm gonna do is trim this this vinyl piece off of the main sheet. Okay, you can see it is still on the carrier sheet. Like I said, the HTV, heat transfer vinyl, comes on a carrier sheet. That's that clear part there. All right, now, before we press, we want to get this rest of this little square off of here, and then we will be ready. Okay. All right, so here's our design. The transfer sheet, the carrier sheet that's built in, is a little bit sticky, enough that it'll allow you to stick your design to your shirt and kind of place it there. Now, I have another shirt over here that I'm going to use. Okay, so this shirt, it's easy to see where the middle is. It has an obvious middle, okay? And I'm gonna go, like I said, about 2 inches down, so that's gonna be about here. But remember, this is just practice. Now, how do you know where the middle of your design is? The easiest way, without having to measure, is to fold your design in half and make a crease line, okay? You don't even have to do a full crease line. You can just, crease it so you know where the middle is, all right? And then kind of place it there. I actually have a little spare piece of HTV that I want to get off there. Anything that's on here is going to press, so make sure you don't have anything. Okay, so it's all on there, all right? And you can see it's stuck on there, okay? Thanks to that heat transfer vinyl. This is why you have to do it backwards, because you saw how it was cut. Okay, it was cut like this, and now we need to flip it onto our shirt. All right, so beginners, just flip it right on there. And I have, again, my iron. Now, the carrier sheet in this situation is protecting the vinyl. You never want to put heat directly onto the HTV, okay? In this case, though, my carrier sheet is protecting it, so it's fine. So this is what I mean by applying pressure directly to your HTV in iron size areas, okay? You don't want to be moving your iron around, all right? So this is a small design. Again, a good reason why this is good for beginners, because you're not trying to fool around with, an 8-inch design or anything like that. All right, so I'm gonna make sure that it's all on there, okay? And then I'm gonna start to peel one corner and see if my vinyl stays. Now I can see my vinyl is staying. If any part of my vinyl starts to pull back up when I'm pulling my transfer sheet off, I'll just put it back down, okay? All right. And this is how you apply HTV to a shirt with an iron, okay? Now, a couple things you'll notice. This is now trash. You can throw that away. Couple things you'll notice here. These shirts, the reason I did pick this design, kind of big, bold letters. Actually, it's easier to see on the white one. Big, bold letters, a large design. Again, you could keep this as a solid circle, and most importantly, it is one color, okay? So we're gonna make sure I really want you to make sure that when you are a beginner, the best way to make sure that you have success at the beginning is to make sure that you are using beginner-friendly projects. And an iron is really, I know that's what beginners are using, so don't get frustrated if you start seeing a bunch of tutorials with how to use a heat press. An iron is just, you have to apply pressure, because pressure and heat and time are what will keep your HTV on your shirt, okay? So just remember, beginner level project, increase your force from the default for HTV to 14, take a deep breath, use a shirt that you're okay if it gets messed up on the first one, because we all make mistakes. Just go back and watch a couple of my videos. I make plenty of mistakes. And that's how you learn, okay? All right, you guys, head over and download that free design so you can make this. If you're interested in software videos, which I get a lot of requests with, can you please do more? I would love to. As I said, it's extremely difficult on Facebook Live, which is why we have Silhouette U. That's where almost all of my software videos are, because we can post edit. We have a library now of over 400 videos on Silhouette U. So I'll link to that as well if you're interested. And I hope you all have a fabulous new year. Let's hope and wish and pray that 2022 is finally our year. Okay? All right, see you guys.